So, how's your week going with paying attention? Have you been paying attention this week? Yeah, remember week 1 of the series, we set our intention. Week 2, paid attention. And today we're going to do a little surrendering. But in the meantime, this paying attention thing is really, really good stuff, right? So on Thursday, I was making an omelet, and I went to turn it over, and suddenly Brother Lawrence's words came through me. I turned my little omelet over in the pan for the love of God. And I think that was the best omelet I've ever made. So did anybody ever read the book Tuesdays with Morrie? Do you remember that one? Oh, a lot of you. Yeah. So Mitch Albom was the author of that, and one of the main characters. It's his story, and it's his story about when he was a college student. It begins, and he met his Professor Morrie, who was a sociology professor, and they just hit it off. And he really liked this professor so much that he took every class that he offered. And they spent so much time together and connected so much that their relationship was much like father and son. So when Mitch graduated, Morrie cried, and Mitch promised that he would stay in touch. But 16 years went by. And he had moved to another state, he had become a successful sports journalist, he had gotten married and had children, and life was just busy. One day he was watching TV, and Morrie was being interviewed that he had been diagnosed with ALS. And so Mitch went to see him. And so began what they called their last sociology class together, where they met every Tuesday. And Mitch tells about some of the things that he continued to learn from his mentor. And in essence, it comes down to 3 little words: surrender to love. Essentially, it helped him realize that the way that he was living his life, maybe some of you can relate to this, although it looked pretty together and successful on the outside, he felt empty on the inside. And he felt like he was running after a lot of things, like including celebrity tennis players for articles and stuff, he wasn't necessarily chasing after the right things, and wasn't really putting his attention in the places he truly wanted to. Yes. Amen, Eleanor, who's now 10 days old, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. So beautiful. Talk about miracles in our midst, right? I actually thought of that when I was thinking of examples of awe. I immediately thought of that moment I saw Eleanor come up on stage last week, all still red and wrinkled. We all started out that way. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, back to Mitch and Morrie. So Morrie was really as he's accepting his own impending death, he's helping Mitch understand that maybe he's subscribing to the values of pop culture and they really aren't his. And he names some of them, like greed and other ideas like selfishness and superficiality, consumerism. And he said, are those the things you really value, Mitch? Because I see in you innate values that are something else. Things like kindness and human goodness and those types of things, acceptance and love. And so it really helped Mitch to shift, to surrender the things he was doing that weren't working, and to open into the possibility of a new way of being, which he started to experience, and it was much more fulfilling. Morrie encouraged Mitch to reach out to his brother who had distanced himself when he got a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, and he lived in Spain far away from his family, and he didn't want anyone to talk about it. And so Morrie counseled Mitch to reach out to him, but surrender your agenda and just tell him you love him. Can't we all take a dose of that reminder? Surrender our agendas and just be in the space of love. That heals everything, really. That's really all we need to know, ultimately. So in many ways, he was learning this idea, and Mitch was softening. He was becoming a kinder person, a more connected person, and a more reflective person, thinking about what it would allow him to reveal more of his truer self. And in that process, he was. We often think of surrender as giving up. And in a way, there is a giving up. There is a letting go. There is a release component to surrender that's giving up the things that really aren't serving us. And so there is that piece, but there's also, when we give up something that isn't serving us, what we are really opening to is the heart of what spiritual surrender is about, which is giving over. It's giving over to the spirit of the being, of our being and the allness of God. It's giving over to the better ideas that are available to us. If we have an idea and we think it's got to be this way, and we decide, well, I'm going to ask for help, I'm going to give over, then I promise you that idea is going to get better. Or a new idea is going to come that's even better for us. So we could think of Maury as our own innate divine mentor, and Mitch as us, right? We are the lifelong learners. We are on this journey where we are constantly learning all these lessons. And maybe this very essential one we could consider the spiritual lesson of surrender, the spiritual lesson of both giving up, but not giving up like raising the white flag, giving up what isn't serving us and giving over to Spirit. So that's what we're about in this series, and at this point today on the journey in this series in part 3 is surrendering. And when we do, what comes can be radical amazement when we surrender. This is the book Ordinary Mysticism by Mirabai Starr that is our fall book study that this material is based on. So when was the last time you were in awe? Last night, me too. Well, that wasn't the last time. Actually, there's been a ton of times since for me, but last night was definitely one of them. All the elves and mystical beings that we got to dance with and eat with and be with at the Wizard's Ball was certainly awe-inspiring, wasn't it? The creativity and the fun. Also at the 9:30 service, I was sitting here in the meditation, and I looked out onto the welcome mat here outside our doors, and I was sure what I was seeing was something else, something I'd been seeing around the Unity grounds, which was a praying mantis. And I thought, oh my gosh, the praying mantis has come to the welcome mat to be here as part of the meditation. And I was in the state of awe through the whole meditation. And then I was in the state of curiosity. Is it a leaf or is it a praying mantis? Well, it turns out it was a leaf, which I was actually a little bit relieved because I was worried for where it was sitting, if it were a praying mantis, that it might get, stepped on. But anyway, these amazing beings, right? This is part of the awe of our experience of life. Did you see the harvest moon? I mean, that's been weeks ago, so I know you've had experiences of awe and wonder. 7 million people across the world. So these states of awe, whatever they are for you, whatever those experiences are for you, it's an amazing thing of what happens to us when we're in a state of awe. The monkey mind is stilled when we're in awe, which that alone seems like radical amazement to me, right? Also, studies show that we have greater capacity for critical thinking when we're in states of awe. When we're in states of awe, we're obviously present, fully present to whatever is going on. Our ego is diminished and empathy is heightened. Boy, if that isn't enough reasons for us to want to experience more awe. And the thing is, it's not like something you have to look for, or you have to, well, we do need to pay attention. But I mean, it's not something that you have to conjure up, because it is everywhere present. That's the whole idea of ordinary mysticism, that we are these ordinary mystics thinking we're just living these ordinary lives. And it's really kind of a joke to say ordinary, because everything becomes extraordinary when we start to really, really open ourselves. And surrendering is one of the ways that we really open ourselves. So Mirabai writes that when your mind is blown and your heart expands, your humility deepens. And you become aware that the world is magical, mysterious, and heartbreaking. You know that you know nothing, really. And this is not a problem. It's a cause for celebration. That reminds me of a story where this girl is in school in physics class, and she's so fired up when she gets home. She tells her mom about what she learned in physics class. And she says, Mom, I think she said mum. I think it was a British story. Mom, did you know that nothing is solid? And her mom was like, what? Come again? And she says, no, like things that appear solid and feel solid, they aren't really solid. They're empty atoms that are just sort of vibrating and jiggling, and they just appear solid and they feel solid because of the force of energy. And she said her mom wandered around the house the rest of the day, just touching things. You know that kind of state? I mean, sometimes I think I'll say for myself, sometimes I think like I've been around long enough that like there's nothing new. And then somebody like showed up at my doorstep the other day with a fruit I've never heard of or seen or eaten. And so I took it home and I was like, what is this? And opened it up, and she said, you just want to scoop it out. And it was delicious and interesting. And it's like, where have I been? How come I've not seen this before? But that's the thing, right? Just like as soon as we think we've got it all, as soon as we think we've seen it all, as soon as we think we've got this down, that's when Spirit goes, whoop, and out the rug comes, right? But also in that experience comes a whole different perspective, a whole new way of seeing ourselves and experiencing ourselves and seeing the world. And I mean, I didn't think there could be that many just different interpretations of the Wizard's Ball as wizard as last night. And they were everywhere present, everything you could imagine. And that's just the beginning, because this is like our new thing to call the fall fundraiser the Wizard's Ball, right? So whatever it is that we are up to in life, whatever seemingly ordinary experience we might be having, there is the opportunity to open it up a little further, like we did earlier in the meditation, to let go of some of those layers that say, I know, or I've been there before, or I know how this goes, or I know what this person's going to say, or I know what they're going to... I remember one time my sister, who ran late for most of her life, finally said, why do you all have to keep me in a box? I've changed, and nobody's noticed I've changed. You don't have to give me the 30-minute earlier time, or what is that, earlier time to show up anymore. And she was right. She had changed, but nobody noticed. Because we all had it in our minds that she's always going to be late, right? So it's like, give people a break, and give yourself a break. And then open to the majesty and the miracles of how life really can be, unfolding in any given moment, changing and transforming and evolving and bubbling up onto the surface. I don't know about you, but when we did that meditation, I felt it. I felt like my divine is showing, and it's a good thing. It's like we so often talk about it inside of ourselves, like it's buried in some like little corner of, we say that we have the spark of divinity. And it's like, ooh, where? Like, can I find the spark? I'm thinking if I go in there, it's going to all be dark and there's going to be a spark somewhere, But if instead we just go, no, all I have to do is surrender. All I have to do is peel back what's standing in the way. And then it's like, there it is. And I don't know about you, but there's a little bit of an impulse to put it back in the box. I don't know why. Why are we so afraid to show our magnificence, Because this is who we are. This is our lived reality. This is what it means to be an ordinary mystic, is to peel back that stuff and just live the true reality of life. because it's already here for us. We think it's off there somewhere in the heavens, or deep in some kind of mysterious place that we'll never find unless we become enlightened. And we're going to have to work really hard to become enlightened, We're going to have to read every book and sit at the feet of every guru and work harder on our meditation. And I'm not, those things, there's some real validity to those practices. I'm not trying to be too irreverent. I am being a little bit irreverent. But we are talking about ordinary mysticism, so we can be a little bit irreverent, I think, because that's part of what turns it all inside out, right? And lets us shake off the dross of whatever it is that keeps hidden from us this glory and the miracles and the magic and the mystery of who we truly are. And so that's really the call to surrender. If you think about all the things in creation, I mean, the everything that's embedded in physical form, it's not just like, oh, ho, hum, there's an inanimate chair. It's like, oh, wow, there's a lot going on inside that chair. And that means there's a lot going on inside of you, right? I mean, if you go just a little bit into some of because I've only ever heard just like very surfacey things about physics and quantum physics, but man, does it blow your mind open, the patterns and the fractals and the things that are just like, we are living, breathing, incredibly, magnificently created beings. It's like the palms of your hands or maps of the universe. There's just, it's mind-blowing. It's heart-opening. And suddenly we go, wow, no, it really is a magnificent place. And we are really magnificent beings living in this magnificent place. So you can call it ordinary or you can call it extraordinary. It doesn't matter because it's just here for us, accessible to us. Contemplating these wonders does open us up. And then suddenly becoming them, walking into them, living and breathing them. So surrendering into that divine mystery is really a big piece of what we're talking about here, what opens up. It makes life more engaging, it makes life more inspiring, it makes it more intriguing, it makes it more supportive. There's so many things that happen when we open up. And what we surrender in the process to get to that divine mystery is maybe some skepticism, maybe some cynicism, maybe a sense of needing to know, right? Or needing to be right, or needing to be certain, have a sense of certainty. I have a friend, Lisa, who came to a workshop I taught years ago. It was the first time she'd gone to any kind of workshop like that. She was a little nervous about coming. And she was, just really one of those like powerhouse people. I mean, I'm speaking her in the past tense just because she was in the past in my life, but she's still living. But anyway, Lisa was an executive director of an organization, super smart. She had like the suit and the heels, and like you just knew like power was walking into the room when Lisa came in, And just a highly intelligent woman, very successful woman. So she comes to this workshop, and I have this exercise. I'm thinking about Lisa when I'm planning this exercise. And so we get in pairs, and I ask the one person to witness and the other person just to repeat like a mantra for a designated period of time, I don't know. Lisa was frozen. She was paralyzed with fear. But she did the exercise to her credit. And it's like her mental fortress just started to open a little bit, a little crack, and the divine mystery seemed to just sort of sneak out. And it was really eye-opening, right, for her to just experience that, of just even saying the words, I don't know. So whatever it is for you, it's probably that or something else, but we can find the places where we tend to rotate around a certain kind of something that it would be helpful for us if we let go a little bit of that and allowed ourselves to surrender, to open, and to see what might be here for us, available through that divine mystery that is everywhere present. So if you don't get the message in waking life, it might come knocking on your door at nighttime in dream life. Anybody get messages in dreams or have experiences in dreams? Lots of people here. So, you think about, let's think about what happens there just for a moment. So it's just an ordinary night, right? You're laying in your ordinary bed, who somebody geniusly created. You ever think about that? All the aspects of that happen to support you in your sleep time? And then, while you fall asleep, there is this extraordinary light show going on in the sky up above throughout the evening. And your ordinary brain is able to access like parallel universes and reorder things that have happened in your life lately, or bring forth people that you haven't talked to in decades that have passed on, or all kinds of wild things happen, right? So we could call it an ordinary brain, but it's pretty miraculous. And we could call it an ordinary night, but there's a lot going on out there and in here, right? We can call it an ordinary bed, but somebody did something really geniusly innovative to create all those aspects that went into that experience. And so in this experience then of a dream, whatever comes for us, I had a dream once while I was in ministerial school, and I got into an elevator, and there was an older couple in the elevator, and I was all wide-eyed, and I said, "Are you the Fillmores?" For those of you who don't know, our co-founders are Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. So I thought it was them, and the woman says, "No, but I'm Agnes, and we're friends of the Fillmores." And she said, "And we just want you to know that we're with you, and so are the Fillmores." Wasn't that sweet? And then I was going up in the elevator, which also seemed significant. You got to pay attention to these things, right? But that was Spirit's way of helping me, because in my waking life, I was not surrendering my kind of go-to way of being, which was like sort of the rugged individualist. I can do it myself. I can figure this out. I can, uphill, the push the boulder uphill climb kind of way, And if you're like me, we let go of layers and layers and layers over a lifetime, right? So we get better at these things, but usually there are certain things that are patterns for us. But what that dream did for me was allowed me to realize, wow, I have so much help. I have so much, wow, just really gets me, because a lot of times we just think the help is right here, which it is. It's here, right, in the people around us and the beings around us, but it's also unseen. And so often, maybe like me, you don't always completely rest into that. And so when we do, wow. It's really quite incredible to recognize. I think it's actually, kind of a mystic's practice to ask for unseen help. An ordinary mystic's practice. Like Mirabai, I sometimes will give my troubles over to the Great Mother. She talks about this. And it's, just sort of like a conversational, or just a sense of, I'm not really sure what to do here. And I love what she says here. I'm not really sure if there's a real being out there listening to me, but it doesn't matter. Because she says, it's the very act of surrender that loosens the knot and allows me to breathe again. Isn't that what it is? It's about that giving over, that kind of surrender in prayer, in conversation, in intention, whatever it may be that comes to us. And sometimes I invoke the presence of what I imagine as deities. Well, that'll be helpful, maybe specifically for all of us in the presence of the room, but sometimes maybe specifically for speaking. And I usually bring in Jesus. He did a lot of talks in his lifetime, and I kind of like that guy. And Mary Magdalene, whose name means power, so there's a sense of power there. And Mother Mary and Kuan Yin, both who bring in this mother love and compassion. And sometimes Moses, Sometimes I invite Moses in too. And Moses, I really especially like bringing Moses in because if you think about how Moses came into his speaking experience, there he was at the burning bush, and God's telling him, go down and like be the leader and speak to all the Israelites. And there, behind him, mind you, is desolate rocks, desolate wilderness. And he does something to the equivalent of, who, me? And so I like bringing in Moses because I relate to him, because I was called to speak and I was like, what? And so it's sort of in that same way. And so we both had to overcome our self-consciousness, and then Moses had an extra hurdle because he stuttered. And so I didn't realize I was suddenly stuttering. Wow. Hello, Moses. That was very interesting. Honestly, I did not do that on purpose. But it's just, I guess I'm sharing all this to say, we have so many different ways of dancing with our ordinary mystical selves. And so to open up, try new things, maybe surrender the things that don't work for you anymore, and then the big surrender into what's possible, what's here for me, what will bubble up to the surface if I peel away some of the layers, and what will that I am really look like, and not just words, but it's like an experience. It's sort of that chilling experience of I am this, and I'm living this, and my life is this. My ordinary life is mystical. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. That's pretty incredible to recognize. So spiritual assistance is everywhere present, inside, all around us. All we have to do is ask and stay open to how it might show up for us, maybe in unexpected ways. And if we do open to that, into the everywhere present, then it becomes this really amazing experience. I often like to conjure up the idea of the Roman goddess Flora. And you could be like the Roman goddess Flora once you open to all of this. You know what happens? When Flora steps, every time she takes a step, flowers bloom underneath her feet. That's how you could be walking around the universe. Isn't that cool? So, play with this. Let your imagination roam. I just read recently that 98% of our imagination is alive and well when we're babies and toddlers. And then in the typical experience, we just keep eroding less and less and less of that. But we're not here for typical, are we? Right? So it's that cultivating that childlike imagination and curiosity, surrendering your need to be like a really responsible stoic adult, right? And just let yourself play a little bit allows a lot of this to move and to begin to feel and experience everything that we're talking about. This surrender kind of prayer that we're talking about, Annie Lamott really sums up very nicely. She's got a thin volume, this book, and it has 3 steps. Help, thanks, wow. That's all there is to it, right? Right into radical amazement. So for us, really maybe the ultimate thing for us to surrender is if we have any resistance at all to being here. If we have any resistance at all to being on earth, to being embodied, to being here now, to allow yourself to let that go. Like let's go for the big one, right? Because if that's present for you ever or always or whatever it is your experience with that, letting yourself give over and say, no, I'm here. I'm on purpose. I'm engaged. I'm an ordinary mystic having a mystical life. And I'm here to find the magic and the miracles and live in that mystery and to spread that mystery and to let myself be lit up and to let that divine I am that I am to come all the way out to the surface so I can live and move and truly have my being from that place and then begin to see everybody like that. I mean, that's when it really gets fun, right? To begin to turn up the volume, essentially, by just peeling back the layers, by just letting go. And that volume doesn't mean that suddenly you're going to be, I'm trying to speak to any fears that might come up, Like people will say, I'm too much. I was told I was too much when I was a kid, or whatever it is, What's too much? You are a magnificent, divine being. Of course you're going to be too much for some people, And our prayer for them, get over it. And for ourselves too, right? I mean, I'm speaking to myself. I need to get over hiding my magnificence, and maybe you do too. And so I'm going to commit to surrendering to more of the stuff that stands in the way. And I hope you will too, because this is the journey we're on, to just give it up, give it over, and see how much more amazing, radically amazing life can be. So let's really affirm this and be this and practice this throughout our week, this truth of who we are through surrendering. Together, I let my ordinary life be an unfolding divine mystery. I am radically amazed. And so it is.